to the Susan Brender Show. It's all about you. Featuring shows on health and wellness, the performing arts, politics, and people who inspire you to be your very best. And now, here's Susan Brender.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. Today we have an author who's done a fabulous job on a book called Defying Death in Hagerstown. His name is John Carinci. John is an executive by day, and at night or maybe on the weekends, he is an author of 8 books. But his newest one is called Defying Death in Hagerstown. So I want to welcome to the Susan Brender Show, John Paul Carinci. Hi, John.
How are we doing there, Susan?
You know, John, I'll tell you something. I'm doing well. Part of the reason is because I interview people like you. Now, I don't want to say that you're the most important person in the world, but I think so. Because when I read your book, I said, wow, this guy is an amazing author. He is just great. Now, let's talk about this. You have penned your 8th book, Defying Death in Hagerstown. It's based on a 1923 diary.
Okay, let's start at the very, very beginning. The book is published by Morgan James, and it's been out for almost about a year. The book was basically written by mistake. I won a diary on eBay, and the diary was penned in 1923 by an unknown woman. And I don't even know why I bid on it. I like memorabilia, I like old things, and I just bid on it, and all of a sudden, I guess nobody wanted it, I won it. So I get this hardcover, 365-page diary, completely handwritten in pencil every day of the year of 1923. And the only name in there that we could decipher was Lolita. And what a wonderful name. I've never heard that name before. And so I was actually writing a book called The Last Lumberyard Standing, and I was out there doing all kinds of research on this book. I was even looking for, because one of the persons was homeless, I was even looking for garbage bins and whatever. I go out, I really get in depth when I do a book. I do a lot of research, so I can feel what's going on. And all of a sudden, I'm reading this diary, and I'm looking at Lolita, a very young girl, 1923, in Maryland, and I'm saying, what a wonderful, wonderful period of time this is. How innocent, and what she did, and what they looked forward to. And there was no TV, there was radio, there was piano, there was the swing in the yard, lemonade, and bread and cakes, and all the family would come over. And I said, I got to know more about this woman. Who is this woman? Whatever happened to her? It took me 2 years of research to find out who this woman was. I finally found a last name that I could decipher, and I did a lot of research. And only after 2 years did I say, you know what, there's a book here.
Yeah.
But it has to be fiction.
Okay, now let me stop you for a second. You've been quoted, and I'm going to give you 3 quotes. They said, John Paul Carinci delivers yet another top-notch thriller. It has everything: shocking, crime, compelling characters, and a clever plot. Get ready to stay up all night. And another one says, a masterful book. John Paul Carinci writes with beauty and elegance of one man's journey from hopelessness to the miracle of life. Now, there is more, but I want to stop at that. You say, or they say rather, that man's journey from hopelessness to the miracle of life. Now, what is the miracle of life?
Well, we have the main character, Lewis, is a down-and-out reporter for the Washington Gazette. He's 31 years old. He's drinking heavily because his fiancée, who he was madly in love with, left him for a physician's assistant 6 months earlier. So his writing is off. He is drinking just to basically go to sleep. He's heartbroken. His work is way off. His editor wants to fire him. He just doesn't even want to work anymore. So this guy's at the end of his rope, and the editor gives him one last story, and that's to go out and interview the oldest woman in the United States, 110-year-old Lolita Kroom, from Hagerstown, Maryland, in a nursing home. And the last thing this guy Lewis, in his state of mind, wants to do is go out and interview an old woman. He's just negative on life right now. And the editor says, listen, this is it, buddy. This is your last opportunity. Otherwise, you're going to be flipping hamburgers at McDonald's. And Lewis knows that he can't even flip hamburgers at McDonald's. The only talent he has is reporting.
Right.
So he sets out to go out and interview this, and his friends all tell him, listen, you've been off your game, buddy. It's time you really got to straighten out now. So he goes out with a good head. He says, I'm going to go out. I'm going to interview this woman. On the way, in his research, he finds out that there's a 1923 diary that Lolita has written about and including a triple homicide unsolved in 1923 of her friends.
Whoa. Let me stop you for a second again. So he found this diary, and this diary talked about murder. This is actually a subject for a movie or a TV series, isn't it?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we are actually writing the screenplay right now. We have a professional in California writing the screenplay. So he's on his way there, and now he says, wow, there's a much bigger story rather than an old lady from Hagerstown in a nursing home. There's an unsolved triple murder, and there's a diary that she wrote. I can get a hold of the diary from her, and maybe I can solve this mystery, and I'll have an award-winning story. And so as soon as he gets to Hagerstown, Maryland, little Mayberry RFD, Hagerstown,
right,
innocent little town, he starts nosing around for clues. Does anyone know about these murders and so forth? He starts asking all around, and almost immediately bullets start flying.
Oh, wait. Now, bullets start flying. So where'd that come from? And why bullets in a nursing home? That sounds...
No, this is before he gets to the nursing home. He's in Hagerstown a full day ahead of time.
Oh.
And he's supposed to interview her the next day. And he's already asking all around town of anybody that knows about these murders. They're historic murders in this town. And somebody evidently wants to keep it quiet.
Sounds like it. Now, what process did you go through in creating your characters? Because the characters are pretty true to life. I mean, there are a lot of alcoholics and people who are out of jobs, and sometimes they're really they're really sick. And so because they are out of a job, they're depressed, and then they'll sometimes pick up a gun. Now, you must have had a really interesting time going through and creating these characters. Well,
you know what it is? A writer actually takes bits and pieces, small bits and pieces, characteristics of certain people that they know, and they gel it together into a new character. So it's never one person, but you can find a very heartbroken individual over love that has just lost the will to live for a time being.
Yeah. John, tell me something. I want our audience to hear the process that you go through when you write your book. Start from the beginning. Do you have a special place where you like to write? How do you, you sit down and words come to you? I mean, tell our audience the process of writing a book.
Totally unorthodox, I am. So I will be in a dentist's office and just writing whatever comes to mind on a scrap piece of paper. What I do basically is I'm planning out a book, and so I'll know ahead of time before I even write the premise of the book in my head, and then I'll just keep asking for something new and more. And so where's a twist? Where else can I get another twist? And then it's a very long process. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, the twist will hit me. I'll wake up in the middle of the night. I'll jot it down, completely forget about it till the next day until I look at it, and there's the answer that I've been searching for. So it's a long process. It takes me probably 3 years to write a book from start to scratch.
Now, people say that when you write a book, it's a very lonely occupation because you have to be in a place that's very quiet and you don't want anybody around. Now, are you an introvert or an extrovert? Because I think that would make the difference, or tell our audience exactly who you are. What's your personality?
I'm very outgoing. So, extrovert.
Mm-hmm. So you're an extrovert. So how did you decide to become a writer? Because, as I said, it's a very lonely profession.
Well, it goes way back to when I was 21 years old in the life insurance business, failing miserably. After 6 months, I had the pleasure of listening to a motivational speaker named Bob Richards. He was an Olympic champion on the Wheaties box many years ago, and this guy was just fabulous. And he gave a tremendously motivating speech, took the microphone, threw it on the side. His voice boomed through the whole audience. He didn't need the microphone. I got up at the end of the seminar, and I wanted to shake his hand. I stood in line. When I got to the front of the line, he says, "Son, what do you do?" I says, "Well, I'm just an insurance agent." He says, "Don't you ever say that again. You are very, very important to this organization. Do you realize what you do? Hey, I want you to go home and I want you to buy a book." And the name of the book is Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude. Napoleon Hill, W. Clement Stone. I says, "Sure, Bob. I'm 21 years old." And I ran home, bought the book, and it changed my life. I started to act like John Carinci, who owned the insurance company I was working for. That became my insurance company. I just started acting like no one else existed but John Carinci. And I went from agent to sales manager to regional manager to district manager, ran the whole show until they closed the operation completely down, fired everyone, and then I went into business for myself.
I see.
So John Carinci became very, very successful in the insurance business and been doing it now for 40 years. Mm-hmm. I wanted to give back. And so my first writing was a self-help book called The Power of Being Different.
So what is the power of being different? I think for you, the power of being different has something to do with your going from an executive in the insurance business to, of course, a writer. Is that true?
Well, I always believed that we're capable of doing almost anything we set our mind to. And so over the years, I've been digesting self-help after self-help after self-help, Og Mandino books and so forth. And I says, okay, it's time to give back. I have to give back to society. I want to help one person change their life the way this man helped me change my life. And that was the beginning. Power of Being Different was written, published in many languages in foreign countries, and it's been helping people for many years. And then I wrote 2 more self-help books. But what we do is we delve into inventors and how inventors are driven. And an inventor will not accept failure at all. They will just keep going until they find the answer to their problem. And most people won't do that.
Now, are you talking about someone like Edison or, give us an example of the people who you think are really driven and had to persevere and be very persistent to be successful?
Yeah, Thomas Edison was born in many years ago, 1847, and he was classified as confused and unteachable by his teachers. He was totally deaf in one ear and impaired in his other. And he experimented many, many thousands of times before he was able to invent a workable light bulb in 1879, perfected it in 1880. And his motto was, when the reporter asked him about failure, he says, I have not failed 700 times. I've not failed once. I've succeeded in proving that those 700 ways will not work. And when I've eliminated the ways that will not work, I will find the way that will work. And that right there, in essence, is the mindset of an inventor. It also is the mindset, I would say, of a writer. Because anybody, like you said, it's a very lonely occupation. Because I'm very slow in my writing, and some people can knock them out. I can't. I've written books that took 5 years or 3 years, and I won't let anybody read anything until the last word is on paper.
Now, what about your family? How do they deal with that?
Well, my wife is very understanding. I'm married for 41 years, and she knows that she could be watching TV, and I'm there right with her, and I'm watching TV a little bit, and I'm writing and researching, and I do a tremendous amount of research before I actually even start a book. Even if it's fiction, I will research and research.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, let's get back to your novel. So did this novel require a lot of research? And if you can explain the process of incorporating factual evidence into this fictional storyline. Now, I imagine that you go to libraries, you go to places like the Smithsonian, and you do your research there.
I do a lot on the internet.
I
do a lot on the internet. I reached out to people in Hagerstown, Maryland, because I was actually trying to find the relatives of this woman, Lolita, mostly to give back the diary that somebody sold on eBay. I felt that should be treasured because it's part of her life. She was only about 21 years old when she wrote it. And I found out that she did marry. She had children, very successful children, and so forth. And so I was trying to find some relatives, and I actually befriended a very distant relative of hers. And then I wanted more information, even though it was fiction. I wanted an obituary. I wanted to know what happened to the woman and so forth. And so I just kept digging and digging and digging, and that was before I even decided to write the fiction work. So that's just the way I am. And then all of a sudden, it just clicks, and now the process begins. And when it begins, it will not end. It's almost like that splinter. You have a terrible splinter, and you're going about your business, and all of a sudden you're looking at the splinter, and you say, oh, and it keeps throbbing, it keeps hurting, and that's what this burning desire is until the last word is on the page. Once that clicks, you just got to keep going at it.
Now, do you see yourself writing other books, and have you decided what the book is going to be about? Because now, from self-help to fiction, what's left?
Well, this is the 9th book. This one is my 9th book out. And like I said, some of them have been published into different languages in foreign countries. And then, all of a sudden, I've written a couple of screenplays from this, trying to get a movie done. And I've been pushing this Hagerstown novel onto producers, and all of a sudden I befriended a producer that says, you know what, I love this story. I want to develop this into a possible movie. So, but I don't want you to write it, John. I want to have a professional California screenplay writer write it. And John says, oh, okay.
You're right. Of course. What would you say?
Okay.
I mean, if a professional screenwriter writes it and they know what they're doing, it could be a big success. But let's talk about one more thing, and that is that you've written so many other books. What makes this particular book stand out, and how is it different from the other books you've written?
I'm gonna tell you that this one, they're all very, very special, and I really can't pick a favorite. But I'm going to tell you that somehow there was like a connection with this woman who lived in 1923, and I felt that she was pushing me onward to finish this book.
That's interesting. Now, are you working on anything else at the moment?
Yeah, so I befriended the producer, and he says, I have a professional writing your script. Mm-hmm. Oh, I says, okay. So I was working on book number 10. Mm-hmm. And book number 10, for the last 2 years of research, and I must have 15 pounds of research on Gettysburg.
Amazing.
It's called The Paymaster's Lost Gold of Gettysburg. So John Carinci says, oh, yeah? You got a guy in California writing a script? Well, guess what? I can write a script.
Oh, so that's what you're doing, huh?
So in 5 weeks' time, because once I get it in my head to do something, you can't stop me. So 5 weeks' time, I wanted to impress this movie producer. I wrote an entire movie script for Paymaster's Lost Gold of Gettysburg. And then I wrote the proposal for a TV series and an hour-long script. This is in 5 weeks.
Amazing.
Called Only Heaven Knows. And it's going to be a TV series. That's what my proposal is, a detective TV series. I did all of that in 5 weeks. And now I'm actually pushing that script out, and just a half an hour before we spoke, I have another producer that says, I would love to see that new movie script.
Right.
So I got that out there now. But I am working now, that TV series, Only Heaven Knows, will be the 10th book. I'm working on that now.
You're amazing. So how do you do an insurance business and do all the things that you do on the side?
Well, basically, I do them mostly at night. I do writing at night.
Amazing. Wonderful.
But it's a whole process. Everyone's got a good book in them. I really, truly believe that everyone can write a book.
You really believe that?
Yes. Everyone's got a book.
Yeah, but there are some people who are right-brained, some people who are left-brained, and not everybody thinks that they could write a book. But you think they can, huh?
Everybody can do pretty much everything. Now, there's a quote here I want to read to you, because I'm going to read it, because I don't know it perfectly by heart. Mm-hmm. When interviewed by Success Magazine in 1898, nobody knows this quote, by the way, because it was said in 1898. Thomas Edison was asked, what's the first requisite for success? Mm-hmm. And Edison answered this way. He says, the ability to apply your physical and mental energies to one problem incessantly without growing weary. You do something all day long, don't you? Everyone does.
Sure.
If you get up at 7 a.m. and go to bed at 11 p.m., you've got 16 good hours. And it's certain with most men that they've been doing something all the time. The only trouble is they do it about a great many things. And I do it about one. If they took the time in question and applied it to one direction, to one object, they would succeed. Amazing. Again, we come to the splinter. We all have the ability to do this. We have to imagine that it's a splinter. And that splinter will not go away until you're finished. So it's the first thing in the morning you think about. It's the last thing at night you think about. You go to sleep thinking about, I need something extra in this novel. I need something. There's got to be a twist. There's got to be, and you just keep working at it, and the answers come. So if it really, truly was that important, you would get it done.
Right.
So everyone does have a book in them.
That's That's great to know that, because I think people need a little inspiration from you, and they're getting it, because look at you. You're an insurance exec, and you had a dream, and you've hit the jackpot. Now let's tell everybody how they can get Defying Death in Hagerstown. Where is this book available?
The book is available in every major bookstore. You would have to order in most bookstores. It's available, of course, on Amazon.com. And if they go to johnpaulbooks.com, they can order it directly from me. And I would like to say that the first two people that go to johnpaulbooks.com and email me through that site, I will send them out a signed copy direct from me for free.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm just curious about one more thing, John, before we finish this podcast. If you had your choice of who would play the part of the man in Hagerstown, Defying Hagerstown, who would that be?
Well, ideally, Ben Affleck would be the main character.
Mm-hmm.
Betty White would be the older woman who happens to be very, very philosophical. I think you read the book.
Mm-hmm.
She is very, very inspiring, and he thought that she was going to be a senile old woman, and she is so insightful and changes so many people's lives that she saw right through to his inner soul, right through his eyes. Wow. She read him. She knew exactly what was wrong with him, and she helped change him.
Yeah. You know, as I listen to you, and again, we're almost done, but as I listen to you, I realized that if you stood in front of an audience and you told some of the stories that came from Defying Death in Hagerstown, wow, would that be an interesting way to get people interested in your book? So I'm giving you a little advice. Go to a library or Barnes & Noble and tell them that you want to talk to the audience, because this is a very interesting book and fun to read. So anyway, John Carinci, you've been a great guest, and I want to thank you for being on the Susan Brender Show. And just repeat, if they want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
johnpaulbooks.com, and my email address is on there, and a synopsis of all the books are on there, and there's even a book trailer, a video trailer for Hagerstown on the website. So and just hold on to your dreams, because you can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Mm-hmm. We're all very, very special. We just have to believe that it's a marathon, and a marathon is 26 miles, the New York City Marathon. You have to be at the finish line. So most people will start and fall by the wayside. They have to be at the finish line. You have to tell everyone what your plans are. I'm writing a book. Mm-hmm. Oh, you are? Yeah, I'm writing a book. And if you tell everybody you're writing a book, guess what? You've got to finish it.
You sure do. Well, you've been an inspiration, John Paul Carinci, and I want to say to you that at another time when you finish your next book and you're successful with the movie and the television series, would you come on the Susan Brender Show again?
Absolutely.
My pleasure.
You're helping a lot of people out there with your show. Believe me.
Thank you so much.
You're inspiring people with your show.
I appreciate that.
And remember, all we have to do is help one person. That's the goal. I want to help one person.
There you go. Well, anyway, thank you so much for being on the Susan Brender Show.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Susan Brender Show. To be a guest, email sebrender@yahoo.com.